looked at IGOs in terms of the WTO, but there are a number of other IGOs as well, global alliances, that also impact how a superpower maintains its power. These can be military alliances, economic alliances, environmental alliances. Okay, so it's a full range of different ways that superpowers join with other countries to continue to exert their influence. In terms of those, NATO, ANZUS, IPCC, NAFTA, ASEAN and the EU are all great examples of that. Now be aware that NAFTA is no longer the North American Free Trade Association. Trump has very recently, along with Canada and Mexico, renegotiated the North American Free Trade Association. Okay, so it's got a different name, it's got some different aims as well. So be fully aware of that change. Now, often the Americans are seen as the world's police. When there's a problem somewhere, the Americans tend to go in. But often in a sort of military sense. There are other things as well, earthquakes, industrial accidents, widespread disease, which America does sometimes get involved in, but certainly not to the extent that it does for military matters. So just get into your notes these key points here about who would be trusted, who would respond, which countries would have the ability to respond, and who has the money and technology, just for those three scenarios there. The UN, of course, has a peacekeeping force. It's not a military per se, but different countries will lend troops to the UN to go to conflict areas to help keep the peace. Currently, UN peacekeepers are in various places all over the world, some more than others. Somalia, Persian Gulf, Cambodia all have more than 500 peacekeepers, but they're spread all around, particularly Africa, the Middle East, and areas of Asia. And they're sent there by the Security Council of the United Nations. 15 members in the Security Council, 5 are permanent: China, France, Russia, America, and Britain. The so-called, well, they're the main nuclear powers in the world, hence why they're there. They're the 5 countries that have had a nuclear capability for a long time. And then the remaining 10 go in a cyclical way. I think it's every 6 months that they get changed out. So everyone has a go at being on the Security Council. They do various things. They apply sanctions, they authorise military force, or they'll send in peacekeepers. Now, what is a veto? Is it necessary? Is it effective? The only countries with a veto in the Security Council are the 5 permanent members. And that basically means that if the 15 members of the Security Council vote for something, one of those 5 members can veto it. If they say no, the agreement doesn't go through, irrespective of whether there's a majority or not. So think about if it's necessary. Think about how effective it is. Various other alliances and organisations. ANZUS, which is the New Zealand, Australian and United States triple-way agreement. NATO, which is a military organisation originally set up in the Cold War to face off against the USSR and its allies. NAFTA, like I said, is no longer called NAFTA. The UN, obviously, the European Union, ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the IPCC, which has been in the news a lot lately, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So just organise those in terms of military, economic, environmental and political, and maybe a couple of notes about what they do. So if you can get that into your notes, that would be very useful. Now, just going back through the last couple of lessons, just try and find some information to do a simple table like this one. Just summarise how the USA and China in particular, but the other emerging powers, contribute to global matters, contribute to intergovernmental organisations, contribute to world problems. Coming back to this concept of America being world police, since the change in president in 2016, the US has taken a far less of a global outlook. They're far less willing to send in troops and Americans and people to try and sort out the world's problems. So there's an interesting article there that you can have a read through, and then just add the information from these questions, into your notes. Couple of things to think about. What if IGOs didn't support American ideals? Would they be as efficient as a global task force? What changes might have occurred if America hadn't assumed the role of global police? And if another country, maybe the USSR, back during the Cold War, had? What would be different?